Today we have to talk about the one time that we almost got a united Africa until NATO killed that opportunity. For people who don't know, there was a moment in history where the concept of pan-africanism, which is the idea of a united Africa, although that is not the exclusive idea, there are many other history. I will link the video by Anarchism that talks about the history, but the closest we get to a united Africa that almost actually happened was in the late 2000s, early 2010s, led by Gaddafi, until NATO killed that opportunity. Thanks for the African archives who went through the detail for commemorating the day of his death, killed by the Western imperialists, preventing a superpower that will become a united Africa. On this day, October 20, 2011, Libya's then president Muammar Gaddafi was killed. Leaked Hillary Clinton emails reveal NATO killed Gaddafi to stop the formation of the United States of Africa. On the 3,000 emails released from Hillary Clinton's private email servers in late December 2015, about a third were from her close confidant Sidney Blumenthal. One of these emails dated April 2, 2011. Read in part, and I quote, Gaddafi's government holds 143 tons of gold and a similar amount in silver. This gold was accumulated prior to the current rebellion and was intended to use to establish a pan-African currency based on the Libyan golden dinar. This plan was destined to provide the Francophone African countries with an alternative with the French franc or the CFA. In a source comments, the original declassified email added, according to the knowledgeable individual, this quantity of gold and silver is valued at more than $7 billion. French intelligence officers discovered this plan shortly after the current rebellion began, and this was one of the factors that influenced President Nicolas Sarkozy's decision to commit France to attack on Libya. According to these individuals, Sarkozy's plans are driven by the following issues. 1. A desire to gain a greater share of Libyan oil production. 2. The increased French influence in North Africa. 3. Improve his internal political situation in France. 4. Provide the French military with the opportunity to reassert its position in the world. 5. Address the concern of his advisors over Gaddafi's long-term plan to supplant France as the dominant power of Francophone Africa. Conspicuously absent in any mention of humanitarian concerns, the objectives were to get rid of the unification of Africa, money, power, and oil. And before he was killed, Muammar Gaddafi made this statement. Obama was to kill me, to take away the freedom of our country, to take away our free housing, free health care, free education, our free food, and replace it with American-style thievery called capitalism. But all of us in the third world know what this means. It means corporations want the country, run the world, and people suffer. Libya was the poorest country in 1951. Gaddafi made it Africa's most developing country, and it was at the time the richest country in Africa. It is the biggest country in Africa and has the longest life expectancy in Africa. With $100 billion of foreign reserves and zero debt, under Muammar Gaddafi, Libya had one of the world's strongest currencies. 1. Libyan dollar equals to $0 and at the 82,781 cents in 2011. Gaddafi wanted to give all African countries the dinar to strengthen their economies. He also had more than 400 tons of gold and similar amounts in silver which he wanted to distribute across Africa to be used in trading. Libya under Gaddafi gave free healthcare, free electricity, free housing. Owning a house was considered a human right in Libya, free medicine, free education in the country including for all Libyan students who were studying abroad, free water, and he built a river. There was no electricity bill in Libya. Electricity was free for all citizens. There was no interest or loans. Banks in Libya were state-owned and loans given to all of its citizens at 0% interest by law. Having a home is considered a human right. All newlyweds in Libya used to receive $16,000 by the government to buy their first apartment to set help to start our family. Education and medical treatments were free in Libya. Before Gaddafi, under 25% of Libyans were literate. By 2011, that figure raised to 83%. If Libya wanted to take up a farming career, they would have received for more land and farming house, equipment, seeds, and livestock to kickstart their farms, all for free. There was also other things like interest-free loans. Newlyweds received $50,000. Mothers receive $5,000 on birth and child. All citizens receive a percentage of all oil sales. Petrol was $0.14 per liter, and the government paid 50% of price of your car. If Libya could not find education or medical facilities they needed, the government funded them to go on abroad. It was not only paid for, but they got a U.S. amount of $2,300 a month for a combination transport. If a Libyan bought a car, the government used the subsidies 50% of the price. And Libya had no extended debt, and its reserves amount to $150 billion, frozen globally in 2011. If a Libyan was unable to get employment, it will receive help by the government. And these are the benefits that he did. And unemployed Libyans received the average salary for their profession. He had plans to introduce gold dinner to be used across Africa. This was when the West came for him. Gaddafi was killed because he was in the process of uniting Africa through one bank, one currency, one economy, and one military, under the principles of what he considered Islamic socialism. That will mean that we will trade our resources with each other, and places like Europe will fall apart in a week. Places like America will fall apart in a week because although they are powerful economically, they have very few resources on their own. Their money will lose value overnight and become zero, worse than Zimbabwe. RIP. Africa will be the most powerful continent because Africa has all the resources. All the resources that make America great are here in Africa. All the resources that make Britain great are here in Africa. The youngest population on the planet is in Africa. Yet with all these young minds, with all these resources, we are still struggling to develop because Africa has absolute no leadership whatsoever. The current people you call presidents, ministers, and all these others fancy names are here to manage the country on behalf of Western government. Nothing here is meant to benefit you. Your gold is taken to Europe. Your diamonds, your oil, your resource, everything you have benefit from foreign economies. The mainstream media will not tell you this. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that is power, because they control the mind of the masses. Africa needs to create its own media. Whoever controls your information controls your mind. If Africa didn't exist, there would be no United States, no United Kingdom. Africans or people just call it black people, take it to America as slaves, built America for free. If Africa didn't exist, all these so-called families, royal families, would be regular people. Whatever power these countries had come from exploiting Africa without our gold, resources, oils, diamonds, that all changed overnight. That's why they killed Gadafi. He was the threat to them all. And like in the words of the man himself, I shall continue to insist that our sovereign African countries work together to achieve the United States of Africa with a single military force, a single currency, a single passport for Africans to move freely around Africa. Millions of Africans journey to Europe for jobs and better life. A united Africa will better exploit its own resources and create jobs to keep Africans at home. Either we live in Africa or we die in Africa. Africa is our mother. How can we leave our mother? How can an African country face Europe that is united, negotiate with the big US or Japan or China? If we had the United States of Africa, then Africa can be on equal footing and negotiate with them. Unite the continent will also staunch the flow of migrants. The mainstream will never tell you this. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to take the innocent His achievement, despite the obvious free healthcare education, he completed the Great Man-Made River Project, the largest irrigation project in the world. Women in Libya were free to work and dress whatever they pleased. Libya outperforms two-thirds of the country listed by placing 53 out of the 163 of the Human Development Index. According to the report 2009, Libya was on the track to meet the Millennium Development Goals by 2050, with a daily calorie consumption of 3,144. The Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, determined that the undernourishment was fewer than 5% of the population. Gaddafi's assassination and NATO's intervention were condemned by powerful leaders and communist parties across, the world. And according to Havana Reuters, the former Cuban leader Fidel Castro denounced NATO on Monday for its role for overthrowing the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, saying the brutal military alliance has become the most perfidious instrument of repression that history of humanity has known. Castro, at the time, was 85 years old, also expressed indignation that killing of Gaddafi last week and the social treatment of his body, which he said was kidnapped and exhibited like a trophy of war, content that violated the most elemental principle of Muslims' norms and other religious belief. In the Communist Party of Britain, they said democracy and stability in imperialist style. Since NATO powers overthrew the elected leader of the Libya, Muammar Gaddafi, over 11 years ago, the nation has not had a unified government nor a period of peace, though the latest clashes are the worst seen in the last 2 years. In the Politburo, the Communist Party of India, in the Marxist group, has issued the following statement. The main aim of the U.S. NATO intervention in Libya has been fulfilled with the killing of Muammar Gaddafi. From the outset, the blatant aggression of the U.S. NATO was to effect a regime-based change in Libya, even though it was proclaimed as an intervention to save Libyan people for established democracy. The claim that the killing of Gaddafi marks on the end of despotic rule is sheer hypocrisy, said it is the U.S. and its allies which pop up the most despotic regimes. It is the people of Libya who have decided what type of government and political system they want with their country. This is not something that we can impose by the US and NATO by force. In Libya, the Gaddafi's government, how it functioned was under somewhat similar to libertarian principles. It was divided into several small communities that were essentially mini autonomous states within a state. These autonomous states had control over their districts and would make a range of decisions, almost a semi-direct democratic system. Like I said, women and basically everybody had basic right because it was considered a human right, not a privilege. And under his rulership, Libya has the highest GDP per capita life expectancy in Africa, and less people live before the poverty line than in the Netherlands. It shows you the principle of socialism, regardless is from the bare bones, bare minimum of electoralists, reformists, non-violent pacifists, liberal socialism of Nelson Mandela, all the way to anarchist communism. As long as you have those principles, the lives of the people will be better by default.